the paper that Shamnat just presented. Maybe we should have modularized our presentations and aligned them a little better, so there might be some repetition, because this paper is also about product platforms, but a slightly different case than the one that Shamnat presented. So I've looked into industrialized house building, and that is more about repetition and talking about processes rather than projects. This is a definition of that. Shamnat already talked some of these production strategies, and that construction belongs to ETO, which is on the lower part of this figure to the left. And that means that there are some predefinitions, and but there are still some degrees of freedom for the client to design and create their products. However, if you're in traditional construction, you're moving to the top, where you basically just have to adhere to codes and regulations, and then you are free to design whatever product that you like. However, within industrialized house building, we're more into the continuous development and incremental development. That is also what we're advocating here in lean construction, of course. And there is more about strategic management, since we want to develop our processes continuously. And that makes the building system a key asset in that aspect. However, then the challenge becomes to balance those two entities, because if we're putting too much focus on standardization, well, then we might end up with a product that is not desired by our clients, and then we will not be surviving in the trade anyway. Shamnat already talked some about product platforms. The advantages: we can offer product variety, a reduced time to market, improved operational efficiency, and better responsiveness to market needs. It's still the challenge to balance our internal and external efficiency, but it can also be a strategic enabler for mass customization and increased competitiveness. And the figure to the right here is just an illustration how a house in this instance can be decomposed into different modules, and then they can of course be assembled with one of each of these modules to a variety of different products. And the challenge here is, of course, that for ETO we still have a large degrees of freedom, but also an integrated product architecture, which means that platforms in general would be difficult to apply to construction in general. Hopefully a little better linked to this part of the trade that I'm talking about with industrialized house building. The coordination between the market and manufacturing is crucial to master, because if the sales department is not aligned with the rest of the construction contractor, they might sell products or components that are not possible to manufacture in an efficient way, and then we will lose money, of course. And there have been some studies that by coming from modified to order or configured to order, there can be incremental introduction and development of product platforms, which means that, well, that goes for most of the parts of construction, that if we're throwing a whole concept, the culture will not embrace that, and we will have struggles of getting the fruits of that. So by putting a few chunks in one at a time and then verify, we can better cope with that. We have had some failed initiatives in Sweden where they've tried to strong, large actors throw in a lot of investments, and since subcontractors and other parts of the industry were not ready for that, then they failed anyway, even though they put in hundreds of millions of euros. And the study on the design phase previously has shown that you have to find a balance between what is our standard and what are we capable, or what do we allow to alter. The aim of this paper is to analyze current strategies and support to master the balance of external and internal efficiency in product development within industrialized house building to facilitate development of a product platform strategy. So we're looking at one case that I will go into deeper in a moment. This was a qualitative study. This is initial in a larger project where we want to do some actual practical development on this company and some other companies. Within this larger research project, we have also companies from completely different disciplines making airline turbines, for instance, and engines, and also lawn movers. So they're coming from the completely opposite direction than we do. And their interest in product platforms is slightly different because they want to offer more variants to the market but not alter their standards. While in construction, it's more the other way. We're having numerous or a multitude of variants that we want to decrease and find what parts of our practice is actually possible to standardize. So we have made interviews and some document analysis. I will not dwell on that since it's more interesting to talk about results. And case profile, this company makes schools, kindergartens, elderly homes, and offices. It's turnkey projects and demands knowledge about their clients' operations. They're using industrialized house building, obviously, with up to 90% of completions. Volumetric elements, which means that you're making 3D components. And our clients are municipalities and other public actors, which is making it slightly more challenging because these actors and clients have large budgets and can put in side demands and customizations without thinking or bother about any extra cost, but it will affect these kind of contractors a lot. Just some illustrations of the case. This is from the site where they're erecting the building. They're not building in too many levels, just one or two. This is a preschool building. Platform theory, Shamnat has already talked about, so I will not stay on that, but we in this paper also adhere to Robertson and Ulrich, so there's 4 components. Important to say here is that we often stay a little too long on the component part of this, because that is the most easy to cling on to and comprehend from the start. But what Robertson and Ulrich also emphasize is that the other 3 components of their definition is essential to master. Otherwise, if you're just looking into the first one, then you will not succeed anyway, because the other ones are of course dependent on each other, which I will show in the results in just a few moments, that the company that I have studied have not succeeded in that yet. So here are the results. As I just said, they're working with mostly with the components. So they've designed something that they call the technical platform, which has a hierarchical, the structure with 5 different levels from the top level with the whole building down to the smallest components and parts on the 5th level. They're using product families and to build up house models. Still, it's putting a lot of responsibility on sellers and architects that they're not selling something that is not able to produce. And their product development is also dependent on putting in initiatives into real projects. So you cannot prepare or test something, make prototypes in advance. So once a solution has been used and long enough, it can be incorporated in the technical platform. So the components is basically a combination of these two. However, development is initiated reactively, so that means that problems are reported and then they look into that and see how much consumption of resources and other things that is needed to make development. Process is pretty well defined. They have made processes for different parts of their operations, and the production have assigned value flows and workstation orders. They use lean production and waste elimination. They've actually won a prize in Sweden for best lean practice in the construction sector last year. So in production, they're pretty well developed when it comes to using lean. However, when we're looking into the white collars and the office and the design, then there are still a lot of work to do. And when the final bullet here is taking in the technical platform into consideration, the production is always prioritized over drawings and the other documents that have been promised to the clients. Knowledge, I'm not going to go through all of these bullets now, but a lot of the information and knowledge in the company is stored within the employees. That is not an uncommon situation in contractors in general, so it's hard to penetrate this company as well as it is for many other construction companies. We're leaning on or resting on a situation where you're learning from people with knowledge and experience, and then that's how we're rolling forward. And people and relationships, development across discipline is scarce. You're doing what you're supposed to do and not trying to communicate too much with other disciplines, which makes it a little risk of sub-optimizations, of course. And if we're moving into the discussion, of course they're using, or at least they're marketing, promoting a modular product methodology. The technical platform is supposed to bring order to product development. However, a holistic view is still missing even in this company. There is no clear distinction between standard components and variants, and no reduction of variant components. One-to-one mapping is missing, and we have an unclear coupling of variant components. The results align with the research, so I'm not going to dwell on that. I want to talk a little more on my final minute here on the path forward also. It should facilitate lean. Of course, this is key issues to master if you want to promote lean. What parts of our operations are actually standardized, possible to standardize? There are other research putting forward that, of course, parts of our operations that is impossible to standardize. We shouldn't force lean into that, because that will just be counterproductive. And final words here, because time is almost up. Maybe I should move to the path forward. Management of distinctiveness and commonality is crucial. We have a file database with a lot of documents that needs to be mapped, and to reduce the number of documents and exclude redundant variants. Okay, thank you.